By the time I was 18, I'd already had 4 brothers drafted into the military. My first thought when I was young was I would never reach 21. And the reason was I had a cousin already killed in the war and a brother already wounded. The Navy said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to be a pilot." And they said, "Okay, we'll make you a pilot." First thing they asked me to do, there was 2 sticks on a string that you move back and forth about 20 feet from you. And you're supposed to bring them right parallel to each other. And I says, "All right, there they are." So he said, "The report says you saw what this was." I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "You got myopia, nearsightedness. You can't come into the flight school." They made me a yeoman. A yeoman is a clerk typist. Me in the Navy, clerk typist, no water. So the reason they made me a clerk typist is because they checked my record and knew I went to high school and I learned how to type. In those days, gentlemen and ladies, boys didn't take typing. I did. I didn't see ravages of war, thank God. I saw the remains of the war, and it wasn't pretty, but thank God I didn't have to fight or kill anybody. So I was lucky, one of the lucky ones that was drafted.
We hauled all the cargo and fuel to all the soldiers. We made sure they had clean socks and lots of Spam to eat and so forth and all. Our fatalities was 1 out of every 26 merchant marine people. I was up on a bridge and I was watching them discharge a cargo. And they had tanks and guns and so forth and all. Then all of a sudden I looked and there were hundreds and hundreds of big boxes of Kotex. And I said, "What in the world is that coming out from our ship, you know?" And they were all hauled in this big long dock alongside the ship. And we went down the dock and talked to the stevedores. And he said, "Come here, you know." And there was about 50 to 100 women with sewing machines. And they were taking these pads and there were 3 foot of gauze and they were sewing it up and throwing it in a paper sack. And they're setting it aside, and these was the orders from Patton. Those were the bandages that loaded into the tanks that Patton had when he was in the North Africa. And so I thought it was a very strange cargo. And it's the ladies that stayed home and ran the sewing machines, riveted the ships, and I think they're the ones that won the war. In the North Atlantic, seeing bombers flown over from the United States over to Great Britain. And we loaded so much cargo in Great Britain, it's a wonder the island didn't sink, you know. But those ladies flew those planes, 3 of them, all packed with engine parts and cargo and everything, with no heaters or anything. And they were subject to the German bombers when they came from the east, you know. God bless all of the veterans in the past and also in the future.
This has been a lesson in life learning and life that we had and still can have. What do I mean by that? That I've thought nothing except the good times. I woke up this morning about 1:30, 1:45, such a matter, and I spent all night just thinking of my time from the time I went in the service, when I lied when I was 16 years old to get in the Navy and got caught. But you know, I could ask a question, where were you December 7th, 1941? Most of you weren't even a gleam in your father's eye then. Well, not from you, my boy. Oh, this is my son. And you were far from a gleam in my eye then. But anyway, I thought of those times, and there was, like here, 3 of my buddies, Bob Wells, Harold Carr, and Bill Daly. Anyway, and we swore to a man that day when we heard President, "Ellen and I hate war." Sound familiar? No, you didn't hear that. But anyway, that's what it was. So we said, well, we're going to enlist and we're going to kick ass. Well, we went, we did what we had to do, and thank God we all come back. But my last thing I want to say here is, you guys, Korea, Vietnam, all of you, even the Merchant Marine. Get that? Okay. It's been an honor and a pleasure for me to know you, to be with you, and share with you, and I'm just as proud as hell of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a great honor and pleasure to express the everlasting gratitude of the Republic of Korea and our people for the service you and your countrymen have performed in restoring and preserving our freedom and democracy. We cherish in our hearts the memory of your boundless sacrifices in helping us reestablish our free nation. In grateful recognition of your dedicated contributions, it is our privilege to proclaim you as an ambassador for peace with every good wish of the people of the Republic of Korea. Let each of us reaffirm our mutual respect and friendship, that they may endure for generations to come. Minister, Patriots, and Veteran Affairs, Republic of Korea.
This story begins in 1953 when I was in junior high school. A group of Hispanic kids, we saw one time a movie of Ira Hayes, who was a Native American who was a hero. He was a young Marine, was among one of the Marines that raised the flag. I admired that young man. I thought maybe I could join the Marine Corps. Asked the recruiter if I wanted to join. He said, "How old are you?" I said, 15. He said, "No, you're too young. Come back tomorrow and tell another sergeant that you're 17, and he's going to give you some papers, and you take it home and have it signed." Showed them to my dad. My dad said, "No way. You're a high school dropout. You're not going anywhere in the service." I said, "Dad, just think of it this way, that I can supplement your income so that I can help you pay for my little sister's shoes, because our young sisters were going to school barefooted in the winter." I said to myself, "No way. Not in America." He started crying. He said, "Son, you kneel down there, kneel down before me, and promise me that you will graduate if I sign these papers." I said, "Dad, I will." In 1964, I was on a ship, USS Turner Joy. The commandant sent us in there to help the USS Maddox get out of there. We were under fire for a couple of hours, and my job, gun mount loader, I had like 5 kids under me. I was scared, but I could not show my emotions because they would probably be scared too. The real heroes in this story is the commanding officer, who did not back down from the North Vietnamese. Our president, Lyndon B. Johnson, signed a proclamation to give this unit Presidential Unit Citation, and I am proud to receive that.
I want to tell you about our bivouac out in the desert. Unfortunately, we settled in a little place which was kind of a gorge. It was a little low, and that night a storm came. and all of us nearly drowned. Before we knew it, our water was in our tents. We're about to fall down even. Sometimes officers make mistakes also.
I spent 12 months in Korea. I spent the winter in there, 20 below zero. We just had skirmishes. Some of my friends got hurt. I eventually got 100% disabled, my feet and my tendonitis. They used to tell us to change socks every 3 hours or whatever like that. But we neglected it because the sweat would turn to ice. But as far as Korea, I cannot remember too much, you know. I mean, it's funny to say that it was a helicopter unit. It was a search and rescue. And that's what my main job was, armor. I had a lot of friends there, you know, real close friends. In other words, they say Marines are closer to you than your own brothers, you know. Because we were, you know, dependent on each other. I've been married for 61 years. My wife waited for me when I was in Korea. When I got out, she suffered with me because my toenails used to come out, you know, they used to fall out. They were like pus, you know, stuff like that. So she had to take them out. And then I had a little bit of a PTSD, you know, I go crazy a little bit. But, and she used to go out there with me and struggle with me. You know, the government decided to give the women, the wives, servicemen, a pension. They figure that they suffer just as much as the men. I can't complain for nothing. I had a good life.
I joined the Navy in 1952 because I didn't want to get drafted, and I knew I would be drafted if I didn't, and I didn't want to go to the Army. The following year in '53, I got drafted in the Army. And I went to see the Navy recruiter. He said, "No, don't worry about it, Henry. You are ours." And I was a radioman. 2 years after I was in there, I got volunteered to be on the shore bombardment team. And our job was to get into a strategic point in a mountain where we could size up the situation on our troops in case they were trapped. And then I would send the messages by Morse code to the ship and then in turn fire the bombs. A polywog is somebody that's crossing the equator on a ship. To become a shellback, you have to go through an initiation. You started off with a haircut, and you can imagine what kind of a haircut you would get. One of them would make a tunnel out of a canvas. It would be filled up with garbage and water, and it was about so high where you had to crawl through it. There would be two or three sailors on each side of the tunnel that you went through and hit you with the straps, you know. Eventually, you ended up on the electric chair, and you were soaking wet and everything. And if you passed that, then Ken Rex would approve that you were now a shellback.
I feel funny when everyone says, "Oh, congratulations for your service and all." I never left the country. You guys, I mean, not just in the Air Force, but you were over there getting shot at. And the worst problem I had was the traffic in California. I was a drill instructor in the Air Force, and I loved it. I don't think I need to be thanked. I helped a lot of guys, and they helped me. I actually had a good time. A lot of the guys that were my fellow drill instructors, they were really nasty to the guys. And consequently, they didn't achieve anything. I was nice to them, not really nice. But, you know, we'd even have laughs, and they didn't say you couldn't laugh.
Sir, I bet you wrong on that. Without your training, we wouldn't be here today.
Well, that crossed my...
You are the one that gave us the discipline and the know-how, so you do deserve a lot of credit.
Did I put you through basic?
In 1951, I was on a troop train from Oregon for boot camp. I met a very nice guy. He was my same age, and we were bunk mates. Let me clarify this. He had the top bunk. I had the lower bunk. Become very good friends. We tried to outshine each other all through boot camp. And then we got our orders. His order said he was going to Manila. I prayed that when I opened mine up, it would say Manila.
but it didn't. It said Korea. Let's fast forward 60 plus years. I never heard from Don. One day in Ruidoso, New Mexico, about 2 years ago, I was looking in a phone book, and all of a sudden, Stockstill Don jumped out of that phone book. I had kind of a shocking feeling as soon as I seen this name, Don Stockstill. I could think of 100 reasons why it might be somebody else. But with shaky fingers, I dialed this number. The guy answered. I said, "Is this Don Stockstill?" He says, "Yes, it is. Who is this?" I said, "Well, this is old Wild Bill from Oregon." He said, "Oh my God." He said, "Where do you live?" "Come over in 5 minutes." For the last 10 years, he had lived less than 2 miles from me in Ruidoso, New Mexico. Isn't that a story? Anyway, we're still the best of friends, and you might want to edit this, but we have drank a lot of beer in the last 2 years together.
I was not old enough to participate in the Great War. I was old enough to collect rubber and scrap. To all of you Korean veterans, I was never in country. The reason I did not really go to Korea is my dad was on the Selected Service Board in my county. Came home on Friday night, he said, "Son, your number is coming up next week." So Monday morning, I hustled down to the Air Force recruiter. And the next thing I knew, I was at Lackland Air Force Base. What happened next is I was on a troop ship with about 6,000 other troops. But I had orders that said Korea. First sergeant calls me in and he says, "Airman, you cannot go to Korea." I said, "Well, where am I going?" He said, "You're going to northern Japan on the island of Hakodate, where I stayed for 2 years on an aircraft warning site. So every time Russia jumped one up, we knew it. And that information went down to the other countries."
We got to Oklahoma City. We're all standing there being examined, and the fella in front of me and the fella in back of me, we were talking, and there's a poster. There was palm trees on it. It was a lovely beach, nice ocean. Hula girl was dancing on the beach, and big bold letters, "Enlist for Hawaii." And I said, "Oh, boy, that looks good to me." So it was kind of an agreement between the fella in front of me and the fella behind me with, "If you do, I'll do it," and that kind of thing. So all three of us, we enlisted regular Army infantry. So we got to Hawaii, and oh, the dock. Here was the Hula Girls. Here was the Army band. Here was everything that you can think of to make you feel good. We looking down at them, and they're on the dock there, and the Hula Girls were swinging back and forth, and we loved it. We said, "Man, it's going to be real nice here." Well, there wasn't no time. They loaded us on the bus, sent us up to Schofield Barracks. The battalion commander, he told us, "I don't know what they told you back on the mainland, but anything that they told you concerning your staying in the islands is not going to happen. As soon as you finish your training here, you're going to Korea." Then put us on the troop ship going to Japan. Wound up in Camp Drake Replacement Depot, and we were being pulled out of the infantry to be trained as radio operators. I didn't know whether to blink or go blind, because I always felt I was a little too big for the infantry. I made too easy a target.
When I was in high school, I enlisted in the National Guard, and sometime after that, the Korean conflict began. But I was in the National Guard, so that eliminated me from the draft. I completed my enlistment in the National Guard, and about a month later, I was drafted. Then a need came for a supply man. The assignment was actually for Fort Buchanan, Puerto Rico. I spent the next 8 months there working in the supply warehouse.
The Air Force sent me to school to be an accountant, a computer operator. Then sent me to Warner Robins, Georgia, 14th Air Force, which used to be the Flying Tigers. That's why I have Flying Tiger on. I got to the point where I was in charge of 12 southern states of the Air Force Reserve. But then the Air Force decided to close all the areas for the personnel and moved everything to Denver, Colorado under strictly civilian. So we were left hanging. I tried to get him to send me somewhere, but the colonel that was in charge said, we cannot let you go because we spent over $57,000 to send you to school and account. What's he going to do in Korea? They discharged me. I went out to back home. Very happy to have served my country.
We were in formation, and the general from Washington came for an inspection. He called me out to the front. He asked me if I was going to be a good bayonet fighter. So he told me to demonstrate what I told him he's like a boxer. He told the sergeant, the real instructor, get this Marine the day off. I went back to the barracks.
It was time to leave Korea for me, and the first sergeant says that I'm probably going to train troops when I get back. And so I remember the basic training, and some of these poor sergeants would be jumping up and down, yelling and screaming at these guys and cussing up a storm. I said, I don't need all that. So I come up with a deal where when I start training troops, I would say the same thing to each group. I'd say, when you graduate here in 8 weeks, you'll be a soldier in the United States Army. But until that time, I'll be your mother, your father, your sister, your brother. Your soul belongs to God, your ass belongs to me. I turned around and there's a chaplain is right behind me about 4 or 5 feet. He's a major. So I thought, oh boy. And I give him a sharp salute and left. And then one day my captain says, hey, he says, you know what? He says, I was talking to the chaplain. And the chaplain, he bawled me out. He said, I should get more sergeants that'll use the word God. So, that's the story.
Out of boot camp, I went aboard the aircraft carrier, USS Princeton, and I had the guns, and I was just to keep them clean all the time, and they were clean. So
one day we were out at sea. I picked up 3 contacts, and the contacts, all you could see was just the top of the mast over the water. And then I turned them in, and the captain and everybody came out, and they looked and looked and looked, and they couldn't find it. And the captain says, sailor, there's no ships out there, no contacts. I said, yes, sir, Captain. There's 3 of them. And they all went back in, and a half hour later, radar picked them up, and I got an attaboy for that. Periscope. I don't think I ever missed a periscope. As soon as they popped up out of the water, I had them right now. I don't know if the others at the port lookout ever seen any, but I seen them all. I never missed them, you know.
Most of my friends decided to go in the Navy, but I didn't go in the Navy because I figured I could walk further than I could swim. I got to Camp Chaffee, Arkansas, and the first day when I got there, they sent me through the chow line, and I was kind of a novice, so they started piling food on my tray, and I didn't know exactly what to do, but I got to the end of the line and I saw a big sign that said, take all you want, but eat all you got. So I decided I couldn't eat all that food, so I wound up in KP. So next time I was more careful as I went through the line.
I think it's very important that Brigadier General Se-Woo Pyo was here, and he had a wonderful message for us about South and North Korea. And I worked on the mainland for 9 months under kind of tough conditions. I worked with North Korean communist prisoners of war. Many of them were unhappy with the government of North Korea at the time. And I've studied a lot about the present government in North Korea. I followed it very carefully for many years. And I think there is a lot of hope for the unification of North and South Korea. And that's like a thank you for all of the veterans that were here at this conference, to realize that they were there representing a country like America that is so democratic and so supportive of its citizens. And a lot of these folks gave a lot of their life to it. Hopefully, in the future, we won't have to send a lot of our troops to places like that. I did have one disappointment. The one disappointment was that Marilyn Monroe came to South Korea. We didn't even know she was coming. She ended up being 5 miles from where I was. We didn't even know it until after she was gone. Can you imagine?
Right.
To encourage the troops to just like the work that
you know, though.
I know. but just like you folks, you're doing a wonderful thing, you know, with listening to the life of veterans and this country, this beautiful democratic country that we live in, is highly reflective of the values that we should have for all people in the world. And you guys are backing this, and that's beautiful.
You were searching for my name today. I saw you standing there. Man, you look different with that silver in your hair. Me, I haven't aged a bit, still all of 21. That's the thing about us spirits, we're forever young at the wall. Here at the wall, we were proud to serve our country when called by Uncle Sam. Then more than a little anxious, then they shipped us off to Nam. Remember all the heat and bugs, days marching through the mud, constant gunfire, smell of death, sight of all that blood. Some gave all. Names carved in this wall, but it's a wall of love, a wall that heals, a wall that touches, helps you feel the faces of more than 50,000 names. Feel the wall be forever changed.
I remember one time we were in a fire support base. Our recon patrol had ambushed a Viet Cong unit, and they were carrying a deer. They brought the deer back. CO asked me to barbecue it. So we made a makeshift barbecue grill and we barbecued the deer. And for a few minutes there, Vietnam wasn't anywhere near. We were just having a nice barbecue. No beer, but we were having a nice barbecue. Unfortunately, 2 days later, we got hit very bad. When the mortar rounds started coming in, we had makeshift bunkers, and of course, I was a military intelligence sergeant, so we had a command bunker, and it was in the ground. So I had gone in there with the CO and the other staff, and the battalion surgeon stuck his head in, Dr. Locius. And he said, Sam, he said, I need some help, man. And I thought, you want me to go out there with all those mortar rounds falling? And then I thought, somebody's got to do it. And dodging shrapnel and everything, we were taking the wounded out from their locations and placing the dead in one location. And then we had called in the dust-off helicopters at the medevac. And they came in and we were loading the wounded into the helicopter. And all this time we had rounds coming in. And those young men flying those helicopters, they were great. They were like angels that came out of the sky. Another time, I was flying in a light observation helicopter on a courier mission, and while we were in the air, just me and this young pilot, I overheard on the radio that my recon element was in contact with a pretty good-sized VC and NVA unit. I got in and I interrupted, and I said, "This is 2 Romeo, I'm pretty close to that location. You want me to assist?" And they said, "Sure, go ahead." So I told the young pilot, I said, "How much ammo do you have?" And he said, "Well, I only have a half a load." I didn't want to hear that. So I said, well, we're going over there and we're going to assist the recon element. We went over there. I had the recon element pop smoke on your left flank so I know what direction you are. We went to work. Well, we expanded all the ammunition that was in the helicopter. We started firing with our M16s and throwing the grenades out at them. Anyway, we got to the next fire support base that we were supposed to make coordination with. The pilot looked at his engine and the cowl on the back of the little jet engine in the LOH had a bullet hole in it, and it missed the main engine maybe about 2 to 3 inches. So if it had hit that engine, we'd have gone down.
I'd been in the Marine Corps for a year when told we were going to Vietnam. We had no idea what Vietnam was, but they told us we'd be in a conflict. In 3 months, we would kick their butt. We didn't have any experience as far as being in combat. We had very few casualties at first. I can't remember too much on that. I guess I don't want to. I came home after 13 months, and yeah, I went into the new unit. We started training the new unit, mostly draftees. I had no idea they were drafted. Once we were out a couple of days at sea, the captain of the ship says, this ship is going to Vietnam. There was 5 of us sergeants, and we were all Vietnam veterans, and we were told that we didn't have to go back again. Out of the 5, 2 of us decided to go with a platoon to Vietnam. I said, somebody's got to take over these guys. It was a nightmare. We got hit. The people that I took over got hit. Most of them got wounded. And I had just gotten there, and I was all scared. And I said, what the hell did I do, man? I should have stayed with the other guys in Okinawa. I didn't expect that it was a Sunday when they tried to overrun us. They did overrun us. About 2 weeks before I was supposed to go home, I was sent out on a combat operation. We had a lot of casualties. I don't want to get into that. It was Operation Mamluk Thrust. I survived. I came back. They flew me to El Toro Marine Corps Station in California. I was there for a couple of days, and I got out of the Marine Corps. I just wanted to go home. I was sick of I didn't want to be fighting anymore. I didn't want to kill anyone. I went home. It took about 3 years for me to get myself together. Of course, when I went home, I couldn't eat hot food. I was used to eating sea rations. We probably ate once a day, drank a lot of water. I was about 30 pounds. And when I went home, it took me a long time to recover, mostly mentally. I'm very fortunate to be alive. I thank God that I didn't die.
I too was supposed to go to Vietnam, but ended up in South Korea at the last minute and worked with the Army Security Agency. We were part of the NSA out of Washington, flying intelligence missions and collecting intelligence from North Korea. While I was in the military, I was exposed to Agent Orange. As a result, I ended up with prostate cancer. I had one harrowing experience while we were flying a winter mission over the mountainous regions in South Korea. The pilot suddenly had increased engine temperature and dropped down to just within a few feet of the snow-covered mountain and wanted me to let him know if it was okay to land. I jumped out of the helicopter. At the same time he took off, and not wanting to be left on a mountaintop in South Korea, I jumped up, grabbed the skid as we were leaving, and probably 200 feet off the ground as I was slowly inching my way back into the helicopter. So that was a very scary time. I easily could have been either left on a mountaintop in South Korea and never found again, or fallen from 200-300 feet.
Graduated from high school in 1960. Didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So my neighbor across the street walked out one Saturday morning and said, what do you want to do today? And I said, let's go join the Air Force. One of the funny stories, and I used to work the midnight shift. About 4 o'clock in the morning, I could not find a crew chief to sign off the work order. Chief of maintenance was a colonel, and he always called on the phone and wanted to know if the airplane was OR. And I told him yes, and he said, who signed off the work order? And I said, well, Colonel, the name looks like Algernon Anderfogel. And so the OJT that I was working with that night said, you know, you're going to be in trouble because he's going to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and want to see that work order. So I scribbled Algernon Anderfogel on it. About 25 years later, my wife and I were putting together a reunion. The last person that I found was working at Wade's Medical Equipment in Houston, Texas. And I called on the phone one morning and I asked the girl that answered the phone if I could speak to him, and she said, well, he's in a meeting. And I said, the name is Algernon Anderfogel. A few seconds later, he answers the phone and he said, this is Ray Davis. It's got to be you. Nobody else would do that. So, you know, that's just some of the things that we did when I was in the service. The days sometimes are long, but you do things to lighten them up.
This all happened in 22 years in the military. My body decayed real bad. Rough life in the military. Yeah, and I'd have knee replaced, back to Dennis and Elaine for more treatment again. Wasn't bad. Then knee turns this way, that way. And then I have to see him again with a serious problem. And today kind of really put a happy face on my face with a fine group of people like this. A month ago, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I don't know if their lifespan is, they can't tell me. But being with you all was a fine pleasure. I had a lot of fun, took a lot of stress off of me. And I don't care how long I go to therapy this time, I'll always be here with you guys.
When I got levied upon, the chaplain from the battalion came and talked to me, and he says, "You don't have to go to Vietnam, you know. We can get you a hardship discharge, being that you're the sole surviving son." Called my mom, and I told her that I was levied upon to go to Vietnam. "You're going to do it, aren't you?" I said, "No, Mom." I said, "I'm not going to do it." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I got to go. All my friends are going." I said, "So I got to go." We got there, and they just assigned us to a tent because they didn't even give us blankets or anything. They said in the morning, and it wasn't that cold. So we get hit. There was a firefight. We didn't have any weapons. And there was 5 of us in there, and I was so scared. I remember that I was laying on the cot. It was a canvas cot, and I could feel myself trembling. I couldn't even hear it. I was so scared, and that was the first time I was really scared. And we moved to Chilai, Phu-bai area, but I had to stay 30 days behind the unit. They only gave us some sea rations. It was bad. I mean, I felt, it was scary also. We did the 30 days, turned over the base camp to the other unit, and we went to the Saigon River, to the China Sea. We got there, and that's when the Tet Offense of '68 happened. And we survived that. They sent me home. I remember the pilot circles around and says, "Look, one last time that you see Vietnam." And I remember crying because I was leaving all my friends behind. There was no big welcome home parties. Parades or people waiting for you. People at the airport gave me bad looks. Like if they hated us. And, you just wanted to get home. And when I got home, the only people waiting there was my girlfriend, my mother, my grandmother, my sister, my brother-in-law. But I made it home and I'm happy. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
When we finally got the orders saying we could go back home, they were looking for my body, so you made the trip alone. Came back to a country couldn't comprehend how so many boys that left returned as messed up men who served with all.
Start with being an innocent 17, 18-year-old kid in Idaho and thinking, well, I'm going to go serve my country, so you join the Navy. Our drill instructor, he told us, he said, probably 50% of you are not coming home. Basically in Vietnam, we were fighting for each other. We weren't fighting to win a war. We fought to win battles, but basically we were fighting to keep each other alive. It was survival. I don't think it was wrong that we went. We were called to do our duty and we followed orders. I think the main purpose of the Vietnam conflict was wrong. I think it was a political thing. In my 13-month tour over there, I never saw anybody kill a baby or kill anybody that wasn't actually the enemy. Now, they tied sexual charges to ladies and sent them up against your wire, and they were suicide bombers. I did see some of those people get shot. I got to hate the word "corpsing up." If you heard that somebody was shot or blown up, you didn't know what you were going to find when you got there, or
when you crawled up to a person. You had no idea what their leg might be blown off, their arm, they might be gut shot. You just didn't know. Quezon wasn't a very good place. It was ugly. Probably looked like the beach at Normandy, only it was a hill in Vietnam. It's not an easy thing to talk about, but I believe that the young people need to know that the young men that went to Vietnam and fought, they went there and fought valiantly. I can honestly say that the young men that fought and died next to me were gallant warriors. And I'm sure they're all in heaven. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't want to be there with them. I'm alive because of a man that got the Medal of Honor. He actually fell down and covered a grenade 4 feet away from me, and was killed when it exploded. You can't get the taste of that flesh out of your mouth. You can still feel it in your nose and your eyes and it's just, nobody can imagine how horrible that is. I mean, you'd live with that every day, day after day after day. People say, well, it's been 50-some years. I said, no, it was last night. Last night you wake up in the middle of the night hollering, help me, and you can't move. And your significant other's standing way off poking you. So no, it never leaves. You don't get over it. For 30 years I didn't. I thought the rest of the world was messed up and I was okay. But it was just the other way around. In '99 I was suicidal and my buddy told me, he said, if you don't go to the hospital, he says, I'll kill you myself. So that's when I started getting help. I am so grateful to have gone on his flight. Having people cheer and clap, how they smiled, it was wonderful. It's probably the best thing. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I have a little cardboard welcome home sign that I got when we got back here and got off the bus. These are tears of joy.
Feel the wall be forever changed. Feel the wall be forever changed.
We scrape and click to the honor flights to pay our respects to you guys for serving our country. So everything that we do, everything that we strive for, everything that we try to get perfect on our uniforms, our outside performance, everything like that, is to honor everyone in the cemetery and individuals like yourselves who have given so much for our country. So from myself and everyone in the team, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for what you guys have done for our country.
Their tradition of selfless service, we are going to have an old-fashioned mail call. Mail call. Those two small words have such a powerful impact on our servicemen and women as they served our country, as they were usually far away from home. To those fighting in war zones, to receive a letter from home was oftentimes the only uplifting reminder of civility as the horrors of war surrounded them on all sides. Mail call has been hailed as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, morale builder for our troops. Each of our veterans has a packet of letters that was written specifically for them by students from Las Cruces, New Mexico and El Paso, Texas schools. I have read many of these letters, and the heartfelt gratitude expressed by these students is both inspirational and deeply humbling. So, in the great tradition, and as a reminder to how wonderful it was to receive a letter from loved ones back home, I now declare that mail call is in session.
You made a decision many years ago to stand up for our nation, to fight for your home. You went across an ocean to a place you'd never been, fought side by side. We never will forget. You fought for freedom, honor, knowing what was right. Now it's time for you to take flight.
I'm going to be very honest with you. I really don't know much about the Vietnam War, but my grandpa was in the Vietnam War. But he doesn't talk about it because he says he will leave the past in the past. First of all, I know by saying this, maybe people will not agree. I'm sorry because you served men like you in an ungrateful country, because I know that a lot of young went to war supposedly to serve your country, and you came back to be disrespected by the country you were serving. I would like to really thank you for serving. I am sorry if we caused you any kind of pain or sadness, but I'm going to tell you the truth. It was never your fault. I know some people during the Vietnam War didn't choose to go to war, which I don't agree with because it's not fair to those that had family, and it's not fair to the families either. I hope you are doing well and that you are happy and you're living a good life so far. It was an honor to be able to write to you.
Where would we be today were it not for you? Words will never be enough to say how much we thank you.
As I'm writing this, I think of the song Imagine by John Lennon. One of the verses goes like this: imagine there is no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. I think this song can apply to World War II. All the countries, or almost all, fought. If there weren't countries, there would be no peace. Nothing to kill or die for. You must have had friends that didn't come home. No religion, no Jews, no Holocaust, no death to innocents. But that's not the real world, how it works. It's full of hate, evil people, and sin. But thanks to people with selfless courage like you, willing to sacrifice their lives. American is peaceful. It's something we take for granted. There were times there wasn't peace, but you fought for the future, for a generation decades later, and for decades to come. Thank you for your selfless courage. With great thanks.
Your courage is what protected our rights and inspires others to do the same. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to watch the sun rise over our land of freedom and opportunity. I pray that you will be able to enjoy the peace you fought for so hard to protect.
Thank you for your service in Korea. My parents are active right now. My dad is in the Navy. He has been in the Navy for 20 years. My stepdad is in the Army like you. Don't cry, Bethany. And he has been in the Army for 22 years. My grandpa was in Vietnam. My dad's side, my great-great-grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman.
Because you fought for freedom, honor, knowing what was right. But now it's time for you to take flight.
As I write this letter, I realize the true purpose of the American ideals of freedom and liberty is to create men like you, to inspire courage within them, even in the darkest of times. Thank you for security and your blessings of freedom and liberty of God. God bless America and God bless you.
We take it for granted, our peace and our security. We feel like it's been peaceful forever. But before us, before our parents, there was you, a single individual fighting for what's right. And when there wasn't peace, even if you were spat upon and hated, my generation is used to happiness, peace, safety. We don't experience losing friends and family to a war, but you did. You fought for our parents' generation, my generation, and many to come. So to the best of my ability, in the best words I can say, thank you.
Fought for freedom, honor, knowing what was right. This is one small thank you for fighting that good fight. Freedom, honor, knowing what was right. But now it's time for you to take flight.
He left home when he was 18, had a life by the reins, and a head full of dreams. They sent him to war in some foreign land, was only a boy, but he came back a man, and now he tries to forget all the places he's been. The face in the mirror reminds him again.
But still, I blocked Vietnam out of my mind for a long time. Seeing the police escort, seeing the kids greeting us and everybody at the airport, it's a whole lot different than when I came home from Vietnam the first time. In San Francisco, and we were greeted with a bunch of protesters. And we all thought we were in the Twilight Zone. We thought we're not in our country. How come these people are treating us like this? And excuse me, but I thought, God, the way we were treated in San Francisco when we got off that plane, and now these people they're just doing what they can to please us, and it was beautiful. I fought for my country. I didn't go to Canada, and it stayed with me for a long time. Maybe it's wrong.
They say that freedom isn't free, and in his eyes it's plain to see. And though he lives, he still feels lost, and the battle rages on, and he still pays the price. I thank the Lord above each night that he had the strength to go. Now don't you let him stand alone.
I just have to tell about my lieutenant that committed suicide after he came home, 30-some years after he came home. because he couldn't live with the loss of losing his man. He was just a wonderful, wonderful man. But he had too big a heart to have been a combat platoon leader. Yeah, I see those guys a lot, every day, every single. I mean, not a day goes by that I don't see those guys. To hold them while they breathe their last breath, it's just.
In that desert hell, he watched his best friend die. Visions of that day still haunt him at night. He does what he can to escape it all.
We came home from Vietnam. They wouldn't let us leave the base unless we were in civilian clothes. And you had to be inside a cab on the way to LAX. There were still balloons full of feces and urines. And those people were screaming baby killers. And it didn't make you feel very good. I am so grateful to have gone on his flight. You have no idea what wounds it healed. Having people cheer and clap and be proud of you.
So if you see him there, lift him up. Do your best to show your love. When you pass by, reach out your hand. 'Cause men like him built this land.
I witnessed things that nobody would want to witness. And as a consequence, you can see I have a cane and stuff, and I need it because of some of the punishment that I took. But that's really not that important. The important thing is you guys are doing a beautiful job. And I admire you guys so much, and I would encourage you to continue it.
They say that freedom isn't free, and in his eyes it's plain to see. And though he lives, he still feels lost. And the battle rages on, and he still pays the price. I thank the Lord above each night that he had the strength to go. Now don't you let him stand alone, 'cause he still pays the price. He still pays the price. He still pays the price. He lives, he still feels lost. And the battle rages on, and he still pays the price. I thank the Lord above each night that he had the strength to go. Now don't you let him stand alone, 'cause he still pays the price. He still pays the price. He still pays the price.
And I want to thank the staff and the membership here today for the wonderful time, the courtesies you've showed me, and the wonderful, wonderful camaraderie with our leaders and our, what do you call yourself? Guardian, excuse me. Like I say, my memory isn't what it used to be. I hope he wakes me up tomorrow morning. Thank you very much, all of you. Appreciated it. God bless you.
When's the last time you walked on green grass? And nobody tell you to get off of it. You can do it in D.C. Run the stoplights, crazy bus drivers watch it.
You made a decision many years ago to stand up for our nation, to fight for your home. You went across an ocean to a place you...
And I just want to thank you and the entire crew for everything you've done for us. And it's just been a wonderful experience, and I'll never forget it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You fought for freedom, honor, knowing what...
As far as today with the honor flight, just, it's amazing. I would recommend anybody that's even interested to just be a part of the honor flight. The people were so awesome, greeting us every place we went, and can't say enough about the escorts we got through traffic and everything. I mean, it's always nice to see those red and blue lights out the windshield instead of in your rearview mirror.
I'm very happy here with this honor flight. I'm elated. This thing has been a healing process for me.
Because you fought for freedom, honor, knowing what was right. But now it's time for you to take flight.
I want to thank the Honor Flight for this wonderful opportunity. The escorts have been fabulous. I wish I had an escort every day through rush hour traffic like we did today. The send-off was great. The greetings were fabulous, very emotional.
Fought for freedom, honor, knowing what was right. This is one small thank you for fighting that good fight. Freedom, honor, knowing what was right. But now it's time for you.
I sort of don't want to see it end because it just seems so wonderful. I mean, people are treating us so great. It's just wonderful.
Got me making my nose.
I did.